am Stonewall enjoys this well described. From here, I get a sweep of the whole
We are back for episode 76, part 2 of the Functional Human podcast. With
your host, D
Jay.
and J.
We're going to work on this spiel. I think it's good, though. We're getting there.
Spiel. We should just have a button recording.
Daryl, you have wanted buttons for a while.
I like buttons, okay? I like to press on things. When I walk in the store and it says, like, there's, like, buttons, I'm like,
when you were a kid and you went into like a toy store and there was like, the toys that would say, try me, would you always try them?
Yeah. And especially if it said, do not touch me.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, of course, don't tell me what to do. Yeah, I have no doubt about that one.
Yeah. And I think it's hereditary because my brother, fun little anecdote there. My brother, when he was a baby, we had plants all over the house. Classic, of course. That's where I get it from my mom. And we had one big one that was on the ground. And so when my brother sat in his little diaper, he could put his hand in the dirt and play with the dirt. And he always did. And we would always give him shit. And we would say, Zachary, arrête. We would say it in French, stop. And he would go like, you can't see my hand right now. This is hard to do. But he would go like this and play, and then he'd look away, and then look at us and look away. He's like, Zach, God, you're still playing with the dirt. And then he'd stop. Just like a cat. You know when you are like so a dog where you're like, stop. Yeah. And they do it, but they look away. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The more you tell us not to do something, the more we want to do it.
That's so great. I love it.
Rebellious.
Rebellious by nature, yeah?
Yeah.
That's a good quality, especially in the times that we live. Especially in the times that we live. Speaking of rebellious, let's start with this little gem of a story. I really like this. This made me happy. This was just a couple days ago from when we're recording. Just in, the U.S. rejects WHO pandemic response measures. It's by the Financial Times. Here's a Robert F. Kennedy press release. The HHS says that the rejection is to protect our national sovereignty, stop the adoption of digital health documents, and prevent international bureaucracies from influencing domestic policies. See if I can pull this up on screen. There we go. Today, the Department of State, in collaboration with the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, transmitted the official U.S. rejection of the 2024 amendments to the international health regulations. This action delivers on our promise to the American people to fight for Americans in the international system, protect our national sovereignty, and prevent international bureaucracies from shaping U.S. domestic policy. The amendments also suggest that countries develop capabilities that jeopardize management and dissemination controls over public health information, potentially stifling valuable scientific debate. Furthermore, these revisions compel countries to adopt digital health documents. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here, and Kennedy actually released an actual video statement as well about it, and I thought it was great. It was he was very clear about the fact that. Yeah, I know.
Cut you.
Yeah, I know. No. He was very clear to say this doesn't mean that the U.S. isn't going to participate or share information or, in the face of a, public health emergency, but we are not going to turn over control to, governing bodies like the World Health Organization, who are financially, geopolitically, in a variety, personally conflicted in a variety of ways. And we just can't trust the information as highlighted by what happened during COVID. Kennedy so rightly pointed out that, during COVID, they threw out decades of pandemic preparedness actions. Like they already had a what to do during a pandemic playbook, essentially. And when COVID rolled around, they threw it all out and pretended like they had to start from scratch. So what was the point of any kind of pandemic preparedness if you were not going to actually follow the rules that you had set forth, right? So, including, by the way, never locking down. Lockdowns were not part of the WHO's pandemic preparedness strategy prior to the whole COVID fiasco.
Prior to the lockdown.
Tells you, yeah. So they were looking for reasons to do things like lockdown and force people into impossible situations. So that's a good thing for the United States, you know, unfortunately. And it may affect other countries, as Kennedy said, because the United States has a lot of, they carry a lot of weight politically, but they also carry a lot of weight financially. So I don't know what this is going to do, if it's going to force the WHO to just carry on with the current member states, or if they're going to have to reconfigure how they do this. But it's a good move, and it's a move that, you know, Trump has pulled us out of the World Health Organization, or at least started the process, and Kennedy has rejected the pandemic treaty amendment. So it's good. It's a good thing. It's what we need, given everything we lived through.
I have a really hard time when I hear the WHO, because it makes me think of the Grinch.
The Who's of Whoville?
Every time. I'm like, nope, don't go that way.
It's either that or the band, you know, but yeah, it's the, unfortunately, it's the World Health Organization. I would rather deal with the band or with the Who's in Whoville than the actual World Health Organization. It's funny. Okay, so that was a nice piece of news that we got. All right, so before we get into this before we get into this paper, where I just want to kind of highlight the big picture stuff, I want to share something with you, Daryl. So this was inspired by one of my favorite YouTube channels called the Y-Files. They did like a brief little thing on this, and I took their idea and I expanded it to make like a larger segment on our show. Basically, it's about the media, and I said this at the beginning of part one. It's because the theme of our show and the theme of a lot of what we talk about is, you know, why should we trust the media? Because the media is just a collection of individuals, right? I always say this, whether you're talking about a CDC, a World Health Organization, the New York Times, any outlet, they don't gain credibility because they are an entity. Like that guy pushing all the soybean oil, BS in part one, he literally said, how could they be bad if all the authorities tell us they're healthy? It's like, really? Is that really your opinion? Are you that, is your intellect that sort of on a low bar that you just, because an authority recommended them, they can't be wrong? Is that your level of intellect? It's actually surprising that anybody could be so dim, but again, he's getting paid to say it. So I wanted to do this little exercise about just the New York Times. So this is not like media in general. This is just things over the 4 points over the course of history that I thought were funny that the New York Times got wrong. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because I just want to show you that. You
only found 4?
No. I just found 4 that I thought were key, and that because we could make an entire show on that. And Daryl, I didn't even include anything about COVID.
Wow.
I went, I wanted to show you that the media stupidity did not just start in 2020. It started before any of us were alive. Anybody listen to this show?
Watch all of our shows. We usually start with headlines.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
So I'm going to share this with you, Daryl. So I'm going to touch on 4 things: human flight, laptop computers, the internet, and television. So these are all, relatively old things. So I want to read you. I'm going to go full screen so you guys can read along with us. But I just think this is really funny. So this was from 1903. And this is what the New York Times said from a October 9th, 1903 editorial called Flying Machines Which Do Not Fly. This is their quote about human flight from 1903. Hence, if it requires, say, 1,000 years to fit for easy flight for a bird which started with rudimentary wings, or 10,000 for one that started with no wings at all and had to sprout them ad initio, it might be assumed that the flying machine, which will really fly, might be evolved by the combination and continuous efforts of mathematicians and mechanics. It must be a 1903 word. The continuous efforts of mathematicians and mechanics in from 1 million to 10 million years. So Daryl, what they're saying is human flight, even if the best mathematicians and mechanics work on this, probably won't happen for 1 to 10 million years. And the beauty of this is that 69 days after this paper,
I was gonna say
69 days
was like in the 20s, wasn't it? 1920s?
No, it was I think 1903 or 1904.
Okay, yeah.
The first human flight
early.
happened.
Yeah.
So they're saying it might take 1 million to 10 million years. Your New York Times, and 69 days later, the Wright brothers took off at Kitty Hawk. So
right, because they probably didn't want people doing that. That's why.
And maybe not. And you know what, Daryl? That's a good point. So either they're truly ignorant to the world around them, or they've been this duplicitous since 1903, right? You take your pick. Either they're dumb or they're corrupt. It's one or the other. Laptop computers. This is a quote from the 1985 article in the New York Times called "The Executive Computer." The quote is, "For the most part, the portable computer is a dream machine for the few. The real future of the laptop computer will remain in the specialized niche markets." Not that like literally everybody will have a laptop. So that's 1985. So they obviously got that wrong. By the way, they also got one wrong about a more modern one, the iPhone. They were quoted as saying something like, even if Apple can create this phone, it's unlikely that anyone will actually want to buy it. So that was one that I didn't put in, but I just thought was funny.
Yeah.
The internet. This is pretty good because this is only 1998. This is from a 1998 opinion piece in the New York Times. By 2005 or so, it will become clear that the internet's impact on the economy has been no greater than the fax machines.
Oh, fuck.
I mean, it's amazing. And this guy, Paul Krugman.
Now we have Grok.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this guy, Paul Krugman, he's still running around today giving everybody advice on things. So, again, people can get things wrong, but when you start to get things wrong consistently, you just really have to start to think about, what kind of information you're being fed from these outlets. And by the way, I know
and like a little bit of grace into, the thought of, you know as much as you know currently,
Sure.
Like a lot of these things, these people were talking about it as it was happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
The flights was the same year. The laptops was roughly 5 years within that time frame. You know, they were new. I think it was 1980s. So I don't. Just trying to be a little bit kind.
No, you're
you know what I mean? Like, just you don't know what you don't know. Yeah.
Yep. You're playing the devil's advocate, and that's fair. I think my point is that what these headlines have in common is what also that gentleman, the soy boy dietitian, had in common, was that they all approach this with an incredible degree of hubris and ego. And that is my real problem. Not that you got it wrong. It's that you approach it as if everybody who doesn't take your opinion is a crazy person. And that is really, and that goes into the COVID thing, that goes into everything. It's like, no. The whole point of science, the whole point of understanding is the ability to question and have the rational conversation. These things all have that in common, is that they are sort of dismissing ideas out of hand. That's great. I love it. All right, last one. Television. This is my favorite. 1939. The problem with television is that people must sit and keep their eyes glued on a screen. The average American family hasn't time for it. That's a New York Times editorial in 1939. Now, one can argue whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but again, hysterical that now we live in a world where nothing but eyes on screens are what's going on today.
I wish he was right, this one.
I know. Yeah. I know. So again, the idea was to highlight that, however you want to look at it, the media is not infallible. Quite the opposite. And all information depends on how it's presented. I've been wrong about so many things in my life. It's no problem. But it's when you approach areas that you should be uncertain. And ever since I really started to dig into science, and again, going to grad school was one of those moments where I opened the door to knowledge that I didn't even really know existed. And that was when I was humbled to the degree of, like, people may listen to me and say, oh, he knows what he's talking about, or he's really sure about what he's talking about. But the truth is, there's a lot of there's a lot of doubt in my mind, and I actually preserve that doubt for a reason, because I think it makes me better at what I do, to always have that little piece of me that's like, remember, Jay, there was a time where you knew none of this, and so that likely also means there's a whole bunch of stuff that you still don't know, and just always be mindful of that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's okay to be like that, because then you're not set in what you think you believe, you know, the ability to pivot if you need to. And I even, you see, human mistake is to be expected, and so I think that that's important to remember when you get your information from news stations and whatnot. But you can see it even in AI. I have been playing with AI lately, mostly to help me find pertinent or how you say, English is hard today. Relevant, but like studies that associate with what I'm talking about.
Oh,
so
okay,
if
sure.
I do posts, sometimes I like to attach literature to it, and so it's a lot easier to just ask AI, find me research on omega-6s and inflammation in the body.
It's way better than a search engine.
It's so much easier. However, if you say summarize something, or if you ask it for information, and I've tested this, sometimes it's wrong, because it's just reading what information is out there, or the most prevalent. So if there is a bias in the prevalence of information, such as seed oils, it will tell you, it will tell you something that it will basically give you a summary of what the research is out there. And twice this happened. One time it happened telling me to removal of saturated fats for inflammation, and animal fats for inflammation, and then the something about seed oils. And I was like, well, useful, but not people who careful with using this stuff. And a lot of people are using it because you may make mistakes if you're reliant only on it and not using your own mind, because again, it's just like regurgitating everything it finds online.
Yeah. So. And you can also refine, I use this a lot to refine my arguments. So you can like push back on it, like you're having a debate, and say, really? And so what about this? Isn't it possible that this, and then it will continue to have the conversation. Again, it's just pulling from information, but it's actually it's a valuable tool in refining your argument and trying to understand, the truth of a matter, and spotting the inconsistencies in the literature that's out there. So it can be valuable in that way too.
Jay's Friday nights with Grok.
Shut up, Daryl. Okay. Okay. I'm just kidding. Daryl, she knows.
I could take it.
You should see us privately. It's not pretty. Okay. Should we do the paper on?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's do it.
So, all right. Let me bring the paper up on screen, I guess, to start.
Paper that gave me a headache yesterday. Yeah.
It really did.
Yeah. You fucking kidding me, Jay? I'm like, I'm not you.
Thank God for small miracles. Okay. So this paper is in Cell Metabolism. It's just a recent paper, May of 2025. The title is Sweetener Aspartame Aggravates Atherosclerosis Through Insulin-Triggered Inflammation. And so we're not going to really read the paper. I want to show you a graphical abstract.
We're not.
All right. Daryl wants us to read the paper, everybody.
No, I read it all yesterday. So.
Oh, wait. I meant to bring up.
He sends me a 15-page paper, and then on the show day, he says, yeah, but we're not going to read it, by the way. Oh, cool. Thanks.
So on your screen, you should be seeing, hold on. Yeah, there we go. So the highlights from this paper, let's go back up at the top. That's the paper. Highlights aspartame increases insulin levels through parasympathetic activation, an insulin-dependent mechanism of the aspartame-aggravated atherosclerosis. This is the important part we're going to go through. The CX3CL1, CX3CR1 signaling mediates insulin-induced endothelial inflammation. And this is a dependent mechanism of aspartame exacerbated atherosclerosis. So I'm going to walk you through that. And what's cool is that they put in this really nice little graph here, and they kind of showed you what was going on. And so I'm just going to high level summarize it, and then we're going to bring it back to the sort of topic at hand. And I'm going to put this on screen because it's larger, and we can actually.
I was going to say, can you put it? Just take us off the screen. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Okay. So basically what we're looking at here is, if you want to see it as like, we're reading from left to right. So the top, we start with ingestion of aspartame, goes through the digestive tract. Now this is done in animals. So this is, I think, monkeys and mice. And in monkeys and mice, the aspartame actually triggers an insulin response, which is interesting because, well, for one, we're not sure that it triggers an insulin response in all humans, but I would argue too, we don't really know that in the general public because most of the general public has never had their insulin ever checked. So that's a really important point, right? Like in some people when we do studies, we find that insulin is not triggered by certain artificial sweeteners. But the truth is, you don't know if you're one of those people if you've never had your insulin checked, and definitely don't know if you're one of those people if you've never had your insulin checked in response to an artificial sweetener, which almost all of us have not had done unless you were part of one of these studies.
Yeah, it's so uncommon to have your insulin checked. It's not
absolutely
blood work. Yeah.
So this obviously triggers the pancreas to release insulin, and then insulin secretion causes the expression of this CX3CL1 protein. And now, just very briefly, I'm going to take you over to another paper to explain what this is and why this matters. And this is the only stop we're going to make along the way that's kind of like, so let me stop sharing and let me start sharing this other paper. Here we go. So let me tell me what you see, Daryl. Okay, yeah. So this paper tells us a little bit more about what this CX3CL1 and CX3CR1 pathway is. So this is a fractalkine. It's a structurally and functionally unique chemokine with a well-documented role in atherosclerosis. In the membrane-bound form, it promotes the firm adhesions of rolling leukocytes onto the vessel wall, while in its soluble form, it serves as a potent chemoattractant for CX3CR1 expressing cells. I'm going to translate that for you. Really what this protein does when it's expressed on the cell membranes is that it says promotes firm adhesion of rolling leukocytes. So essentially, it allows white blood cells, leukocytes, into the blood vessel wall. Okay, because it's essentially it's allowing passage of these white blood cells from the bloodstream into the vessel wall. And this is not a good thing. In the second part of that sentence, in its soluble form, it serves as a potent chemoattractant for CX3CR1 expressing cells. Those cells are things like monocytes, macrophages, other immune cells that are involved in the process of atherosclerosis. So what this protein is doing, this CX3CL1 protein, is that it's attracting all of these immune cells, and then it's allowing them into the vessel wall. That's not a good thing. Additionally, the CX3CL1 exerts cytotoxic effects on the endothelium. So remember, that's your blood vessel walls. It's cytotoxic means death to the cell, as well as anti-apoptotic and proliferative effects on vascular cells, affecting the context and stability of the atherosclerotic plaque. So this is actually playing a role in the process of forming a plaque in the arteries. Studies on animal models have shown that blockade of the CX3CL1, CX3CR1 pathway ameliorates the severity of atherosclerosis. So in animal research, they can do all these kinds of things where when they block these pathways, and they can do it in a variety of ways, but when they block these pathways, they can make the severity of atherosclerosis less. So showing that this is a mechanism of the process of atherosclerosis. This is a major deal. So with that said, so now you understand what this is. That protein that we're talking about. Let me go back to this. This process, the CX3CL1 protein. Now you know what's happening. So aspartame is ingested. The pancreas secretes insulin. Insulin causes this protein to be expressed on the endothelial cells. So now it's calling in neutrophils, lymphocytes, monocytes, macrophages into the interior of the vessel wall. And that's creating these initial lesions as you walk through this diagram with me, and then exacerbating this atherosclerotic plaque, and that eventually leads to coronary heart disease. So insulin, we know, is part of this process, right? Anything that creates a high insulin or a hyperinsulinemic environment causes this damage to the endothelial wall. The white blood cells come in to help repair the damage, and then over time, the continued insults of high blood sugar, high insulin create this problem. This is happening in the absence of glucose. This isn't a non-caloric sweetener. This is aspartame. So if insulin is released, when someone is saying, "Oh, well, I'm just going to cut my caloric intake by taking aspartame," but if you're one of those unfortunate individuals that has an insulin release, you're now expressing these proteins on your vascular walls. They're allowing these immune cells to be attracted to the site of these receptors, allowing passage into the blood vessel wall and starting the atherosclerotic process, even without having high blood sugar.
Yeah.
And if you don't test your insulin, you would never know this. But now we have a mechanistic way by which aspartame, an artificial sweetener, can exacerbate atherosclerosis. And I think this is like groundbreaking. And everyone will say, "Oh, it's only done in animals." And it's like, yeah, but again,
we have to let go of that. Holy shit.
I know. Because we don't know what humans it's actually happening in, do we? We have no idea.
Yeah. And that's just one that's just one thing that they decided to check for, right? If you think about chronic inflammation in the body, that can manifest in a multitude of ways for whoever's predisposed to what, right? So that predisposition may just be in this case for for heart disease, right?
Yep.
But if you wanted to pull that and test for something else in people who are perhaps predisposed to another autoimmune disease or another disease, then it could probably find correlation in other areas just because of the chronic state of inflammation.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, we didn't even touch. This is nothing even related to the gut microbiome. This is purely an insulin response and endothelial protein expression. It's not altering the gut microbiome. And so I think also you should take away this. The cardiovascular disease is a multifactorial process. And one of the best books and physicians that has written quite extensively on this is Dr. Malcolm Kendrick. He's written several books on the process. And in the end, one of the best books he wrote was called The Clot Thickens. And essentially he's saying, this is a process of high blood sugar, air pollution. There are a variety of chronic inflammation. There are a variety of ways, which I guess would result from high blood sugar and air pollution, right? It's like all these interrelated things, anything that damages the vessel wall and attracts things like white blood cells to repair the damage, cholesterol, collagen, builds collagen. All these things are the process of repair. And that is over time when that repair process is outpaced by the damage being done. So you're not changing your diet. You're still being exposed to whatever.
Gaining weight, like adipose tissue, right?
Yep.
Right.
You're still driving inflammation. Yeah. That eventually the process is not able to keep up. And you have what is classically known as heart disease. But the process is multifactorial. It's been going on for a long time. And like Daryl said, this is only one mechanism. But those people who think that they're reducing their foods just to calories, like I'm sure that guy who did the soybean oil post, about soybean oil being healthy. I'm sure he defends aspartame, especially if he's paid to do so. But they never really look at this stuff. They never think beyond, the overly simplistic points of view that people have on this calorie argument, which is why the calorie argument has to go away because
they're just going to throw at you that insulin is normal, right? That our body regulates by itself, or that inflammation is normal because that's where all the healing happens, right? But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about hyperinsulinemia and chronic inflammation.
That's what we're talking about. Yeah. And I mean, pulling all these things together, I won't go through it today. Maybe we'll save this for next week. I had a really interesting, it's on this topic, actually, not artificial sweeteners, but sort of like fat and cholesterol in the diet. Nina Teicholz did another great Substack on this. And basically she's breaking down how the changes at the HHS and the National Institutes for Health in the Trump administration, how they are re-examining all the money that's being put into nutrition studies. And they're wondering why all this money's been spent over the years and very little. So on one hand, the people are saying, hey, we already know what causes heart disease. We already know what proper nutrition is, right? It's a plant-based diet. Like that woman dietitian said, low in saturated fat, high in polyunsaturated fat, like all the talking points, the dietary guidelines, yet they're still spending millions of dollars.
Chickpea fritters.
Yeah, your favorite. Daryl, when I first saw that, the reason I wanted to bring it on the show is because for a moment, I thought that might have been the food police woman. Oh, and it wasn't, but I thought it was. So I was like, ooh.
I wonder what she's saying lately.
Yeah. She's probably being paid by US Soy too.
Yeah.
But anyway, she talks about this whole thing about why are we still spending millions if you already have the answer? And so Jay Bhattacharya, the new NIH director, is starting to think, maybe we should be putting money into different areas of nutrition research to try to figure out what's going on here. And so it's a really interesting article. Maybe we'll read it next time and bat around the ideas a little bit, because I think that's a worthwhile exercise. I mean, how do we know? I mean, if you've got the answers to everything nutrition, then we don't need any more money for nutrition research. But they're still researching things like, saturated fat and all these things, despite the fact that the diet heart hypothesis has never been able to be proven. Eating saturated fat equals heart disease. It's actually been disproven many times, but they still try to prove it over and over and over again because that's the dietary dogma since the 1950s. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess we can kind of leave it there. I just thought that the concept of the information that you guys are exposed to out there was just important to talk about this week, because as we continue down this road of disruptors, right? RFK from the health perspective, Jay Bhattacharya from the health perspective, even from the political perspective in the Trump administration, or anybody in the world, anywhere that tries to stand up and say, hey, I just think we need to reevaluate this. You're immediately met with name calling and all kinds of, hysterical type reactions that, don't really further a conversation. And that's why I wanted to point out the fact that even the New York Times, and there's people I know that only read the New York Times because it's the New York Times, but even they can get things wrong. And quite often they do get things wrong. So you need to use your gut a little bit when it comes to things. You need to, what do you think about all these people defending soybean oil or any kind of a seed oil? You realize you're defending a fat that's relatively new in the human food supply, and it's strictly man-made. And they're railing against natural fats that humans have been consuming throughout human history. I mean, even
and
that on
how
its face,
is it made? Just look at how it's made. Just look at the video.
We should bring that up one day, huh?
But you tell me if you want to eat that for breakfast.
Well, it looked like
use your gut, but also use your head. In French we say "utilise ta jugeote." Your jugeote is your little noggin. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's
I thought
like a Quebec expression.
Oh,
jugeote. I don't even know if it's a.
Is la tête? Is that the
la
brain?
Tête. No,
the brain?
Use your head.
Oh, okay, got it.
Jugeote is not a standard French word. It appears to be misspelling or misunderstood for good judgment.
Daryl, I remember. Yeah. I pulled that French word from 8th grade. That was pretty good. I just randomly remember that from French class.
Tête is head, but yeah. So
okay.
It's basically a French slang to use your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is use your gut in French? Is there a word?
So oftentimes our sayings don't work. Like if I translated a saying in English to French word per word, it wouldn't have the same impact most of the time.
Interesting. I guess that makes sense, especially if something is relatively new and the saying is strictly
it's not
English
really,
or something.
I don't think there really is, because if I say, like, it would be like listen to your stomach. It doesn't like.
And what about like the gut microbiome? Is that like if you were to read that in French, would you just say gut microbiome?
Fuck, I don't know.
I would just think because in certain instances, a scientific word is just the word and that's it. And like you hear people speak Spanish a lot and then you'll randomly hear an English word. And it's like, that's probably because that word, it only really exists in English or it was, I don't know. It's interesting to me. You hear that a lot when people speak a foreign language and I'll randomly hear an English word and I'm like, huh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it would just be like intestinal. It wouldn't be because gut is not a there's no word for gut.
Well, look at that.
In French. I don't think it would be like intestinal something.
Huh.
But, yeah. Anyway.
Well, look at that, ladies and gentlemen. You got
the sentence of the week is utilise ta jugeote.
Oh, I want to close every show out with that. I really do. I really do. We answer a few questions from the audience. Daryl gives us a French phrase of the week. I like it.
We did say we were going to do that in the beginning, the French word of the week. But
we did.
If it comes to me organically, then I will say it.
But this was a good one. The use your head, because that's really been the theme of the last, the last two episodes is just, mind what's going on around you. Use your head and don't just defer to the guidelines or some governing authority because they can be wrong and they can be corrupt. And both of those are going to be bad for your health. So, all right. Well, Daryl, thanks for hanging out. And I guess
time to go get a pump. Go work out.
I don't want to interfere with that. So I guess we'll see you guys next week.
Okay. Bye.